Welcome to the Academy, where we discuss and seek a change in long term athletic development. My name is Ben Wellenbach, and I am the dad of two girls, strength coach, and owner of Be Well Fitness. It is my desire to help educate and shift the way our current culture operates regarding long term athletic development. And it was on an early Saturday morning, but nothing that we as coaches haven't done before. I had just flown back to Boston for the first time in years to be a part of the first rollout of the functional strength coach certification with my first mentor, Mike Boyle. I had to take a late flight because the high school football team I was working with at the time had a game Friday night, and I was running a little thin, but to me it was the best way to run thin, doing things you love. We got to a point during the training early on where we had to partner up, and for some reason I feel like PJ and I just gravitated toward one another. Maybe that's my cinematic way of recalling the situation like in Step Brothers, but nonetheless, we quickly hit it off. He had a great attitude and sense of humor. He was fun to be with and around. We had some good conversations and found we both worked with athletes of all ages. That was 11 years ago. Since then, PJ has opened Maxway Performance in New Hampshire, and he continues to coach athletes of all ages and grow his coaching abilities. As I do with every guest on the podcast, I will pair each guest with a sneaker from the Nike collection that best represents them. Nike introduced the Air Max 95 in 1995 through its designer Sergio Lozano. Lozano was tasked to keep the momentum of the Jordan brand and the Air Max 1. His goal was to create something the world had not seen before, which is what PJ seeks to do at Maxway. I chose the Scales colorway to blend the Max in Maxway with his love of fishing. So, PJ, welcome and thank you very much for taking the time to share some lessons learned for long term athletic development.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And it's crazy that it was 11 years ago, right? So I do think that we gravitated towards each other because of our paths being similar and our goals and kind of just our mindset being pretty similar. And it just kind of led us to each other. And then it's crazy to say that we're still on the same path 11 years later and become good friends with the guys at Boyles. And I know you know Mike and those guys really well. So luckily, we're really close to Boston and New Hampshire, so we're able to get down there quite a bit and forge a really good relationship with those guys. And it's been fun to see the growth of their business as well, and like they're doing with the certification and keeping kind of in touch with that, and then seeing the network of all of us who kind of were there in the early days and kind of impacting other coaches, right? And then our web getting bigger. So it's just been a really good time of growth. It hasn't been easy, right? But it's been good, and it's been, I think, things that are challenging to build are kind of longer withstandings because it's put down with a solid foundation. So here we are, right?
Yeah. I mean, when we were going back and forth, like setting this up and everything, I actually had to look like the certifications like behind me over here. I had to look at the date and I couldn't believe it was 11
Yeah,
years. Like,
yeah,
I
it's pretty
mean,
crazy.
yeah,
It's pretty cool for the first group. So something to hang
that's
our
right.
head on, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was the very first rollout. I think what they've done with it has been fantastic for our industry, and I'm grateful. I'm
For
grateful
sure.
for it for sure.
I think that they
Um,
did a really good thing of breaking the mold a little bit, where so much of our industry and what we do specifically is the coaching aspect of it. And I feel like they were one of the first ones to really kind of like say, hey, this is just as important as anything else. Because if you can't connect and deliver it in kind of a systematic way and approach, like it's not going to be sustainable. And then you see the life cycle of a strength coach or a fitness person, it's not very long typically. And because there's not a lot of structure behind it. So I think they did a really good thing of kind of breaking through it and showing the world, people like me who were younger into the industry at that time, being like, okay, cool, here's another way to do it. And you don't have to go take this one exam. You can do it another way and show the value of being a coach, right? And a coach to me is akin to a teacher. And I think that they've really done a good job of showing that the best coaches in the world are really just good at teaching very simple, fundamental thing and making connections with kids or adults, right? And adults are just big kids at the end of it. But
Exactly. Speaking of kids, what I'd like to do is just touch on your childhood
yeah,
yourself. Tell me about, where you grew up. Tell me about, what sports were like for you as a kid. Were they structured, unstructured, brothers, sisters?
yeah.
What did you play?
Yeah, so I grew up in a really small town in western New Hampshire, towards the mountains of New Hampshire, called Newport. It's a 5,000 person town, an old mill town. If you've ever shot a Ruger gun or know of the Ruger rifles, that's in my hometown. So a lot of my town goes and does that, and they have great lives and they stay right in town. And some days I'm jealous of that. I grew up with a single mom and an older sister. So I didn't grow up with my dad, and I think it really put me into this kind of mindset of like coaches are very important people, right? Because my only paternal kind of figures were from my coaches, and those ended up being kind of at the youngster age, right? My friends' dads. So I was really latched on to sports because sports were the way that I got a male figure in my life, right? And that shaped a lot of it. So I dealt with a lot of depression, anxiety, still kind of do, but I've been very outward about that because weight training, I believe, really kind of kept me alive through my teen years. But growing up, it was every sport imaginable. As whatever you could, right? I had a great childhood, and my mom was a school nurse and then worked at a summer camp. So every summer we would go out to this YMCA camp and I would just kind of run free. But football, basketball, baseball, structured all the way through high school. And then some pretty sad stuff happened, if we're going to be honest. It's like where the name of my gym comes from. So those coaches that I had through T-ball and Pop Warner football and all that rec basketball, all that kind of stuff, their names were Chad and Fred. So Chad Hemingway and Fred Maxfield, great guys, really good human beings to me. What I needed, didn't always get along with them, but kind of just like a dad figure and a good coach figure. They're trying to forge you into a better person. They had two sons, or one each, right? They had a couple kids each, and Davis and Jacob were my best friends. So Davis Hemingway and Jacob Maxfield were like my best friends, and their dads. Chad gave me my first set of golf clubs. I still play golf today, and Chad gave me my first set of clubs and a couple of lessons at the local course so that I could learn how to play a sport that I wouldn't have been able to without him giving me some clubs. I relied on them to help me coach and play sports and stay active in sports and bringing me to the games and getting me things when I needed it. And I had a really, really loving mother and a rock solid mom who did whatever she needed to do to be able to kind of provide for me and my older sister. And I had a sister who took care of me. Davis drowned when we were 16 in a swimming accident. So Davis drowned in July 13th, 2003. We were going into our junior year of high school. Jacob and I became really close. So he and I became even closer, right? He was a year older than us. Davis and I were in the same grade. Jacob was a year older than us. And Jacob and I continued to play sports, snowboard, be teenagers together. He went off to Endicott College to play football. He played 4 years of football at Endicott. I went up to Thomas College and played a sport I had never played before. I picked up lacrosse and I played 4 years of college lacrosse. Loved it. It was awesome. The summer before my senior year of college, so the summer of 2008, Jacob fell asleep driving and died in a car accident. So I've dealt with this, right? And then this whole trauma hits again. And I've dealt with my anxiety, depression, really low spots, found weight training as a teenager to kind of help me through and stay constant, right? And then this bomb gets dropped as I'm about to go into my senior year of college. Make it through, kind of surviving it, right? And then graduated in 2009, no jobs, terrible market, yada, yada, yada. I ended up getting a long-term special education position as a paraprofessional at a local high school on the seacoast of New Hampshire because the AED used to work in Newport. So she had known me since I was like 5 years old because she was friends with my mom. So she kind of did me this favor and was like, cool, like you can help coach football and lacrosse and you can take this special education position. I was like, perfect. Great. Did that for 2 years until the principal didn't renew my federal grant application and I lost my position. So then I get kind of thrown into this mix again. And what I had learned during that time frame was that I enjoyed the coaching of the sports and the weight room time more than anything else. If we back up a little bit, I studied psychology and sports management in college. So like as I went through school, a lot of it was self-serving for me just to survive, right? So my basis comes from, I thought I was going to be a sports psychologist, right? That's what I thought I was going to do. And then I didn't want to go to graduate school. So I fell in love with coaching by coaching football at the high school, by being in the weight room with the athletes after school during the training sessions, coaching lacrosse, and then doing some kind of like club coaching in the summer times. I got kicked into the fitness world because my brother-in-law was trying to help save like a general, like commercial style gym. So I got like a front desk position at a gym. And that was my first experience ever kind of formally in the fitness world. Got a personal training certification, like just one of the simple ones you can get through the weekend, kind of got my foot in the door, and then started like helping with group style classes. Then I went to a kettlebell gym and worked big group style classes and was dealing with mostly adults. And I was like, at that point, I wasn't coaching football anymore. I wasn't coaching lacrosse anymore. I was kind of lost in like, what am I doing? What am I missing? Like, I didn't really enjoy listening to adults have their problems that weren't really problems. I felt like I could make a bigger impact and more enjoyment with the kids. And it was really kind of searching for what was happening. That's 2012. That was like right before we met. And then Boyles comes out with this certification that's like, oh no, here's some practical aspect of it. We want to see if you can actually do this in person. So for me, that's kind of what connected all the dots, because like, oh, okay. So that's when I miss training athletes, miss being around team sports, which is realistically just something bigger than yourself, right? And any athlete feels that once they are no longer part of a team. So it's like once you finish whatever it is and you lose that aspect of being part of a team, it's really, really hard. You feel lost, right? You feel really, really lost because you have no purpose. Nothing's bigger than you. I felt like I do better in that regard, right? And as that happened, I kind of figured like, okay, well, like, how can I get back into that feeling, right? Like, where can I find that? And I was like, I can create it through a youth program. So I worked at like a commercial style gym, building a youth program, building kind of like my book of business as a general personal trainer, right? Like, go get somebody off of the general floor, sell them on some personal training, and then build your business. And that's what I did. And then I would train their kids in the afternoons. Build it. And then it just it wasn't the right long-term play for me to stay in that setting. And it kind of came to this point where I was having like daily panic attacks getting ready to go to work because of the setting and the environment. And like I had thought for the 3 years prior, I was ready to go jump out and be on my own and do my own thing and hang my own shingle. And you know what I mean? And my wife was like, no. And then once she saw the visible effects of like me having anxiety attacks before I went to work, she's like, okay, now's the time. And I kind of pulled the trigger July of 2019. And then 6 months later, the world shut down. So to pull everything back together, the name of my gym comes from Davis and Jacob's names. So like, I don't know which way this will show on the screen, but like it's Max Way. So Jacob Maxfield and Davis Hemingway, and like the MW, like, but it also looks like a PJ. So then all three of us are back together again. And realistically, that's the driving mission. And that's my why, is that my favorite memories of everything were playing sports and going to the rec center and learning how to lift with Davis and Jake, and like spending that time and knowing that like the weight room is awesome because 45 pounds is 45 pounds for everybody. So it doesn't matter what coach says or what this coach likes or what your family has or doesn't have or blah, blah, blah. 45 pounds is 45 pounds, and you can either lift the weight or you can't. You can either do it or you don't. And it's very cause and effect. Like you can do it and you get this outcome. And if you don't do it, you don't get the outcome. So you can't really fake it. It's an equalizer in my mind. And I found solace. Like I found really good kind of like, it was almost like going to church, to be honest. Like I didn't grow up necessarily going to church every Sunday, but for me, like if I needed that moment to myself and I needed to be able to find something that was always constant and true, the weight room was it. So then getting lost, kind of like losing Jacob, and then kind of getting kicked into this world, like, what am I meant to do? What's my purpose, right? What am I supposed to be doing in my life? I need something more. Maxway was kind of born, and it's been a wild ride ever since, man. It's been awesome. Business is growing. I'm learning every day. I have a great staff of people that work for me and that work with me. And then overall, I'm talking with my son. Hold on. I'm sorry. Overall, It's been a lot of fun. So I've learned how to become a dad while I'm doing it. I've learned how to hold boundaries because I didn't grow up with my dad, so I want certain experiences for my sons. So it's like I've held certain times as a hard stop and I've paid more in payroll. So like the guys who are the business gurus that would look at my numbers as I'm trying to build my gym would be like, payroll's out of whack. I know, but so for me, there are always these kind of like anchored moments where it's like, I'm going to be home for dinner time and bedtime. And if that means that I have to pay more to have a coach there in that hour, that's fine. And if I have to pay a coach to show up for 6:30 to 8:30 so I can bring my kids to school, then so be it, because there's only going to be so much time that I'll have, right? And things happen quick. And you and I talked about some personal stuff that happened this week with my family, and it's just like you never know when things are going to go. And it's just really, really sad that like people sometimes chase work to then miss their life, and they're trying to build their life through their work. And it's like, to me, it has to be like, we just got interrupted from my son, right? Or by my son, because like he's in the gym every day. Both of my kids are in the gym every day. And it's just this environment of just good, right? So that's my life in a nutshell, man. It's wild, it's fun, and I would say that at the end of the day, I'm very passionate, and I'm not gonna do things that don't fill my cup, and I'm not gonna do things that I don't think are worthwhile, because I've seen so much bad things happen. As far as like you lose friends early, you lose family members early, and we shouldn't be wasting time doing things that don't fill our bucket and don't keep us going. It's been fun to be around people and have people try to get better, right? Like Mike says it all the time that we're in the life changing business, and it's like I love to see, because you see it too with having like younger athletes, where the growth of a kid from 10 to 18 is, you've been with them for such a long developmental stage of their life. Like you as a coach you're so impactful, right? We're mentors, mentoring kids through the vehicle of strength and conditioning. That at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. And then we meant like adults don't go to school, so we can train them in the mornings. So have to be able to mentor an adult as well, right? So it's impactful. It's challenging, but it's so impactful all the way around that I don't think I could see myself doing something else. But
Mike just put out a post. I don't know if you saw it, but he has said this for years, that we as coaches are in the life-changing business.
mm-hmm.
And that's really more true now than ever,
Right.
because whether you're you know in the youth game or you're in the adult game of life, the reality is your whys will change over the years. But you know the the impact, you even said it. I use that. I started smiling when you said it, because I use that line all the time, that the gym is the ultimate equalizer. Like, you, you can't, and I'm sure you've grown up with kids who have been very fortunate and have been handed a lot of things, but you can't buy, a lift. Like, you can't buy, deadlifting or benching a certain weight, you know, being able to do X number of chin ups or push ups. Like, you can't pay someone off to that. You can't politic for that. You
It
can't.
can't be given to you.
You've got to earn every bit of it. But so I want to. I mean, man, you gave me a lot to chew on in that.
My apologies. My
No,
apologies.
God, I mean that's why we're here. But what I want to do is, I wrote down and took a little bit of notes, because I I think I think it is incredibly important to talk about, I think, this evolution of coaching, because what coaching looked like, let's say, for the majority of the time, even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, does not look that way right now. We have Unfortunately, we have more kids and or adults that, at least in my world, I have to think in yours too, that are presenting with depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
because we're making it okay to like share your feelings. We're making it okay to be not okay, essentially.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, what have you, let's say, first of all, witnessed from an evolution of coaching standpoint? So that's one. But to the follow up of that is, you got you focused, you said mainly on psychology, and you thought you were going into sports psychology. Do you think that current and or you know upcoming coaches should take some sort of psychology classes, read psychology books, things that would have that component to it?
Yeah, I think that that's something that I think it is becoming more prevalent because I do think that kids are being more comfortable talking about it, and that's part of the reason why I bring it up. And there's some very sad ending to the story with my father that I don't necessarily need to get into now, but it's along those same terms. We can touch on it later. But with the kids that I'm finding is that they are more open about it, and maybe it's the generation of the or the age of the parents who are more open to creating the discussion. Like I'll say that like I probably had a mother who was more in tune to it, and I was closer to her because she was my only option of like, hey mom, I don't know what's going on, but I know I'm not right. Like, and then her getting me kind of into things and being in talk. I was in talk therapy for 2 decades, right? So from a separation anxiety as a 8, 9 year old, because I only had one mom, right? And you get terrified, to then being in talk therapy as a 14, 15, 16, 18, 20 year old. And so I think that there is more advocacy about being open and honest, and that it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay not to say something. Like you have to talk about it, and like everybody's not going to. But then I think distinguishing between like life isn't all rainbows and butterflies. So knowing that there is kind of like going to be up and downs, and it's like when you're down, when it should be up, we need to talk about it. I think that every coach should go through some sort of education because you need to be able to connect with people. And part of being able to connect with each kid or each client individually is being able to sort of read their person, right? Read their personality, being able to communicate effectively with them. What kind of gets them going? What are their passions? What is their kind of mode of operation, right? Is this person a happy go lucky? All right, cool. Let's maybe dial them back. You know what I mean? Temper them. If they're like an Eeyore, we got to pump them up and get them going. Like what? So being astute to knowing that there are differences and being able to connect differently with different people, I think is the best way to keep retention, because you're creating that bond with your client, and it shows them that you're not just here for the sets and reps. Like, cool. Well, I'm really here to help you navigate this path of being more fit so that you can go live whatever your life is more effectively. So I think it doesn't have to be a lot. They need to like get introduced to it in some capacity.
I've always said the sets and reps are like the easy part. I mean, that is like the easiest part.
That's the barrier of entry in my mind. And I was just having this conversation. It's like that's what gets you into our door. Is can you kind of coach and be there and control a room? But then it's like, what are your other skills?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think what you're speaking of is very much about creating a culture in the gym from a coaching standpoint, because I know for us in our facility, I know I experienced it with Mike and his, and you can tell, if you go on your social media pages, like the culture that you're creating at Maxway is a culture in which you're getting kids and people just in general excited to be there far beyond sets and reps. Like this is about connection. This is
Yeah,
about community. This is so that very much is, hey, you're not by yourself. You're in this, you
right.
know, we're in this together here.
I think that people latch onto that because things go wrong in life, and then they need maybe someplace else that they can go and just feel strong and feel capable and feel connected, that maybe doesn't necessarily involve a family member or a worker, you know what I mean, like a coworker, where they can be completely removed and complain or like vent about certain things, and they know that like you can talk to me, like we're just still going to go do the same thing, but you can
Yeah.
talk, right? Like, and we can connect and we can go through this. And look, we're still going to be active, and you're going to feel better when you leave, right? And they know that they can rely on that when things get hard. And I think it's that third place, right? People really search for that third place, and I think that if you do it right, the gym is an amazing place to do that, because you're working hard together. When you see other people work hard and trying to motivate towards a goal, you want to do that as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had Mike on a couple months ago, and I asked him a question in regard to nature versus nurture. And it was really intended to be, kind of this God given or born talent versus, the work. And he said that it's kind of been my favorite take on the question since I've asked it. And he said that nature becomes the multiplier, meaning, you know, you, if you have, an athlete who is on a scale of 0 to 10 of skill, and you have an athlete who is of 0 to 10 of, let's say, work ethic or energy that they put in, let's say they're a 9 on skill, and then the work ethic is, maybe a 4. They're like a 36 out of the 100, like if you multiplied a
Yeah.
max of 10 and a max of 10.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying that the X, or the multiplier, to get the high talent and also the high effort, is this, culture and
Yeah.
community that you create. And I think that, again, it goes back to, are you getting the coaches who are going to and are wanting and willing to connect with the people there? Forget about, you know how old they are, forget about their level of talent, whatever. It's just the connection side.
One thing that, as a business owner, what has helped me, right, not to pump the CFSC too much, but having a system that, like, the young coaches that come in for us, they don't really need to learn how to do anything other than run our system, right? So it's like having a system and a programming kind of platform, progression, regression, like having everything already laid out. All their entire job requirement for the first 6 months is just meet people and like just go do our program, right? Follow what we're teaching you in the staff meetings, but then just go connect with the people. You don't really have to think about any of this because everything should be set up for success. You just need to go be a good human and go be you and be the best version of yourself that we want. I don't want 8, 10 more copies of me. I want to have unique, solid, great individuals go be themselves in Maxway's community, right? And I think you're searching for that, or you're hoping to kind of create that same platform of like, hey, have a young coach come in here, develop your skills, become a better coach, and then either create a career here with me, or let's help you springboard someplace else with the skills that you stacked. And I think that the connection of the people is where that longevity comes from. Of like, you can stay and then you can go do it wherever. Because if you know how to connect with people, you can do it in Dallas, you could do it in California, you could do it in New Hampshire. You do it because like that's a baseline fun to me. It's a baseline fundamental human thing, right? Like having and forging relationships and creating that community of people is really, really important in the longevity of everything, right?
Yeah. And I will say that, you know, you were you were talking about, just impact in general, but the impact that team sports in particular for you had. And I would 100% agree. I had a couple previous coaches and teachers of mine on the podcast, and they use the term that sports are the classroom of life.
Yeah,
And I,
absolutely.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that terminology. And so, that kind of being, let's say, the framework, I just want to shift real slightly to more of the athlete side of things, or even I guess we could go athlete like parent side
Mm-hmm.
of things, because you've put out on your social media a bunch of PSAs, and I chuckle when I see the PSAs because I'm like, I'm in the middle of it right now with my two girls. So I want to talk about showcases. I want to talk about these weekend tournaments or just tournaments in general in youth sports. We could even talk about if you've got, adults that are competing in, adult,
Yeah.
you know, multi-sport or endurance athletes. But it's what is clear about your PSAs is that you don't you don't believe in the way they're executing them currently.
To be a better way to do it.
So my question is, can we, how about this? How would you ideally structure competitive play in athletics if these showcases or tournaments don't fit the mold?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue, and I think everything starts out meaning well. Like I think the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Like, and I think that like the goal of like I'm 38. So when I graduated high school in 2005, and like AAU, kind of those first couple of years prior, like my high school, maybe a little bit when I was in middle school, was just becoming popular, but it was for a very small section of kids. Like my buddy Davis played on the Granite State Raiders with Chris Brickley and a couple other, like Matt Bonner's little brother Luke. Like they were like, but very like the 10 best kids in the state, right? And I think it's been the water's been it's just been sullied, like it's just crap a lot of the time, right? And like one of the main things I think is just volume, the total volume of work that these kids have to do. And then I think that there's trickle down domino effects of that, right? And I think some of it may be like is definitely like the overuse injuries, and it's definitely things like burnout, right? It's definitely things like, I think like some kids limit their potential on speed because of how much they basically turn into endurance athletes, but they play field sports. So I think the intentions of what is trying to be done was well minded. But I think what ended up happening in between was that people who had a business savvy mind were like, wow, we can make a boatload of money doing this. And then other people copycatted and copycatted and copycatted. And now, realistically, you go to Showcase every weekend and you got invited, but so did every other athlete on their mailing list, right? So it's not that special. And there are some, and that's like the main message, that as our athletes get older, I don't think anybody should go to anything before they're in maybe sophomore year of high school. Because your local competition is probably good enough. Probably, right? 15, 16, 17, 18. Now we can probably, if you're good and you want to play college athletics, but then you have to be more selective, right? Like if you're going to every single showcase and your legs are tired and you don't feel good, and what are you showcasing? You're showcasing mediocrity because you're slow and you're tired, right? Or if you go to every single one of these showcases and you never get an email back, what is the return on your investment of all of that time and all of that effort, right? And we've had kids stop playing AAU basketball because like we're just playing the same teams in a different location every weekend. The time and the money is better spent on one-on-one individual training and year-round strength training. And God forbid, be a teenager, have some free time, hang out with your friends, not do something, right? And I think like what's ended up happening is people found that they could make money by owning teams. Then people found that if they didn't like how their kid was getting coached because they perceived their kid to be better, they went and found another team or created their own team. Then people who own the stadiums or own the fields or own the arenas or own the whatevers, they were like, wow, we can charge a day pass, we can charge $1,000 a team, we can charge for all the food, this swag, that swag. Cool, this is a 50K weekend, this is a 100K weekend, this is, and then there's one in every metropolitan every weekend. We have some kids that we won't see for 4 weeks straight this summer because they're literally going from place to place to place on this bandwagon of tourneys and showcases. And it's like, and the one thing that I wish people would hit and like would pop through is like, if organizations like pro teams pay hundreds of millions of dollars to athletes to perform at their best, and they're forcing and requiring them to not do things for a certain amount of time, why is it in your 13-year-old's best interest to play double the amount of games and no breaks? How does that make sense? So like the things, it's like one of those, like, how does this, like, are we serious here? And it just doesn't make, it's not in the best interest of the kids.
There are a couple guys that I really enjoy that I was turned on to by Coach Dose and Will Fleming.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys work a lot with youth aged athletes. And one of the things that they are adamant about is that kids should not be trained like professional athletes. That most kids these days, because of the state of technology, because of the state of just our world, are not doing much of the things that you and I did, you know, let's say growing up. And, you know, it was much more normal to play multiple sports growing up. You're right. I mean, I remember this AAU being a very small, select, let's say, group. Whether the select meant that it was something that you could afford to pay for, mm-hmm. or it was like an actual talent thing.
Yep.
But I mean, I think, you know, my take is we are putting a label on something that it really isn't. It's like Tommy Boy. You know, if you want me to put a label on there that guarantees it a piece of shit, I can do that. But
mm-hmm.
If you want me
to, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
the team, you can name it elite or select or super, like it doesn't. Yes.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the kids that I see are more skilled.
Yeah.
Technically, we see a lot of lacrosse players.
Okay.
A lot of 8-year-old and 10-year-old lacrosse players had better stick skills than when I started playing in college.
Right.
Right. So like they're technically much more gifted. However, they don't possess the physical qualities to be able to do those things at a high level of athleticism. Right. And Jeremy Frisch, I think, is the gold standard right now on doing all this. And thankfully, like where I'm located, like I can get to all these great guys like really quickly. But like I know Jeremy and I've been following his stuff. And a lot of my elementary based program is it's the same stuff. It's free play. And like the kids are missing general preparedness. They're just not more like they don't have. Sad to say that I had a group of 18 first to fourth graders in like a play based elementary school program. Maybe 6 could do a chin-up. And these are 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Maybe 6 of them could do one chin-up. Now, like, I don't think that that's something that a kid shouldn't be able to do, right? So it's like we're sending these, but those kids are playing, some of those kids are playing travel sports, or they're doing something all year, right? And it's like if you age it up a little bit, where 5th, 6th, 7th grade, like these kids are definitely playing sports all year. They're stacking skill sessions on top of practices, but they can't do a proper push-up. They can't do a chin-up. God forbid they do a squat on one leg, right? So it's like they can't control any of it. You're not training any of the physical qualities, and you're wondering why your kid isn't getting faster, why they can't separate from somebody. And it's kids, in my opinion, that have better physical athleticism with lesser skills that get further longer, right? Like that's the kid who can play lockup defense as a freshman in basketball because he's fast and he's gritty and he's strong and he's tough. And then over the next 3 years, the coach will teach him how to shoot a jump shot, right? It's the football lineman who's just brute strength. We'll teach you the technique, buddy. Come be strong and be an athlete. Like, or the kid who's super fast, right? We'll teach you how to run a route, right? But you can't do the opposite, or it's much, much more difficult to do the opposite. You can't be like, I know how to do the exact footwork for this route, but I'm just slow. Everybody could cover you. You wouldn't get past it, right? So it's like, if you have a perfect jump shot, but you're too slow and too weak to create any spacing, you're never going to get the ball. So you can't display your skills. So if you don't have the physical qualities, you can't showcase your skills. And I think that the focus has been so much on play games, and none of it has been on develop the athlete as a whole, right? And to kind of kick back into why do you think we're seeing a rise in kids talking about their mental health is because you can see a 9-year-old or an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old be like, I'm a hockey center. It's like, no, you're not, buddy. You have boogers on your face. You're a kid. But like they are whatever they attach themselves to, which is that sport. And then if their parents are like schlepping them everywhere and spending tens of thousands of dollars every year on their sport, that kid is going to think, if I don't do this and do this well, I'm nothing and I'm a disappointment and I don't. And then that just creates that negative cycle in this kid. And realistically, it's like, no, dude, you are a kid who plays a sport, right? It's like my oldest son's name is William, right? So it's Will, and Will is a great kid. And Will has all of these different attributes, and Will also plays basketball. Will also loves football, and Will also loves baseball. It's not Will the baseball player. And a lot of the time, the conversations that come back and the athletes that I've had for a long time now kind of open up and have real life conversations with me. It's like, you get hurt, sport gets taken away from you. Now what? If you don't have any other identity or any other hobby or any other thing that kind of fills that passion, you're screwed. Because now you've just lost your complete identity, or you become a NARP, right? Like a non-athlete real person. You get thrown, right? Like you get thrown into this NARP world and you're like, golly, what is this? And you don't have a purpose. You don't have a passion. You don't have something there. You get lost. And I think that we've forced kids at a younger and younger age to attach themselves to a thing, which is a sport. And then even sometimes even a subsect of that sport, where like there's a 12-year-old who's like a Fogo. I face off and I get off. That's all I'm doing. I'm a hyper specialized in Fogos. It's like, buddy, you could be like any part of the field. You're 10, you're 12. Like you can play defense, you can play offense. You could even switch. and like the European basketball model is the opposite of the American basketball model right now. And we're seeing that the best players are European, and it's more like their inverse practice to game ratio of what Americans do. And I think football is the last sport, right? Football has its own issues with concussions and CTE, which are very, very relevant. But like, I think football has the best work to game ratio, where you practice all week and you have one game. And then you practice all week and your preparation and your planning is all going towards that week. And we've lost that, where you're playing we'll have kids, I'm not joking when I say this, we'll have kids who play 3 high school lacrosse games in a week and then go play 3 to 4 games on the weekend. Now tell me on Monday in quarter 1 that you can give full effort knowing that you've got 9 games this week. And then the parents are going to come back and be like, wow, man, Billy Bob looks slow. It's like, well, Billy Bob's legs are gassed. He's just run 15 quarters in a row. So it's like, what do we expect to happen? But it's volume. It's all volume.
Yeah. So how do we fix this?
So
how do we start?
So those PSAs, I was like, I must have been fired up one morning, and I just sent a PSA, and then like I got because like I call it, like I'll get off my soapbox whenever I need to, right? But it's like I got so many messages, and not even from like obviously like from people in the industry who are like, yep, preach, right? Like definitely send the message, like this is it. But like from parents who are like, thank God somebody's saying it. So it's like I think people are like wanting somebody to kind of like kind of break through and just take maybe the first couple lashings of being like, hey, here I am. Come at me if you. I'll disagree with everything. I'm going against the grain of it. I'll swim upstream and I'll take the hits from kind of being first. And then it just kind of like, I guess, like knowing that maybe I am the expert in my area and kind of getting rid of that imposter syndrome of like, why would they listen to me, to being like, yeah, they probably, I'd rather you listen to me than somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. Right. So that's, I just think that more and more people need to hear it, because it's like the wave of like the no smartphones for our kids. And it's like my wife and I are being like, yep, no smartphone, like hold off, nope, nope, nope. And I think like banding together groups of parents who are just going to say like, no, my kid's not going to play this sport right now. Like we're going to take a break. Like, no, we're not going to do much in the summer so that we can go on these family vacations. Right. So to kind of circle back a little bit, I think part of the issue with like these showcases is that moms, and I'm saying this moms specifically without trying to be too much, but moms want their kids to be physically active. Dads want their kids to be good, right? Moms want their kids to just have some physical activity so that they're doing something active, so that they're not sitting at home on a screen doing whatever, eating junk food, blah, blah, blah. So then the easiest thing is just to stay in that loop, in that rat race of like, oh, I signed up for fall soccer. Oh, they're offering a winter soccer. Yeah, it's better than sitting on the couch. Oh, they're doing a spring one. Oh, sweet. Yeah, it's definitely better than skiing's over. So we got time. And then before you know it, they're 3 years into never taking a break from the sport. And it's because I was just trying to keep my kid active. It's like, well, there's another way to keep your kid active, or there's another option to keep that kid having fitness in their life. Some sort of something, right? Whether it's karate or whether it's jujitsu or rock climbing, or we have mountains, so people ski, right? Or water ski or surf or whatever it is, right? There's something other than one specific team sport, right? Then you get your kids into a different friend group. You get your kids exposed to different things, all of that. But I think a lot of the time it's like moms being like, I just want him to do something active. And I'm afraid of him not doing something. So I'm just going to keep him doing this because it's simple and easy. And then 3-4 years later, they're like, oh, crap, what just happened?
Mm. So, I mean, I think we agree on, so much in regard to, the strength and conditioning side, the multi-sport athlete, all of those things, right? I think allowing kids to be kids, standing up, not being afraid to voice an opinion, and that opinion coming from a general care standpoint.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing this saying, you shouldn't do this because you should be training with me. You're saying, it's just not good. Like let them be kids. Do something during the summer. Like, all of these things I think are
boredom is okay, right? Yeah. And I think that they feel like everything needs to get scheduled and structured and minute by minute plan. And it's like, well, they can just be bored for a little bit and figure it out, because like that's the best way to start creativity and start an imagination, and then go and do whatever. Like it doesn't have to always be there. You can do something else, and you can just do nothing, and you can be outside and figure something out. Like I can't stand it with my 7-year-old. I'm bored. It's like, cool, bored, go outside. Like go do something else. I'm not going to fix your boredom. It's the stuff that we weren't given as an option as kids.
Now the option is that the majority there was a study that came out, and it was pretty telling that we run away from boredom to technology, that 100%. we pacify boredom with technology. So, most of let's say kids these days aren't willing to be bored because
they don't know how to sit in it. They don't know that feeling. It's uncomfortable. And it's like, even for adults though, like if you watch the adults like next time you're in a line, grocery store, movie, whatever, wherever you are in a line, look at the adults. Every single adult has their face in their phone. So it's like, if that's killing our attention span and any boredom and any personal connection, it's like, try a challenge of like, try to not have your phone out in those situations. Yeah. Like, so, because like I would pick up my oldest from school, and I get there 5-10 minutes early, and it's like really easy to doom scroll and just melt my face. But like, guess what I did instead is I just literally put a book in my truck.
Yeah.
So now like the book's there, the phone's there. It's just as easy for me to grab a book. And now I'm reading a book, which is much more healthy for my brain. And I put my phone away. But it's like you look at people and it's like we want our kids to be less addicted to technology, but then like look at us. And I always find the irony in like people posting on social media about the detriment of social media and how it's ruining us, but then we're all consuming it via social media. And I just think it's kind of like it's almost like, you know what I mean? Like I just think it's funny. It's like, oh wow, this is kind of weird, right? Like couldn't we just put this maybe in a newspaper and we just like got a weekly newspaper and like technology is killing your brain.
The irony is hilarious. All right, so I know we're running low.
Yeah, I've got some time. We can go over for a little bit. I've got some time, and we're all good. We're all good. I like the conversation.
Let's at the very least tell me. It's very easy for us, and when I say us, I mean you, me, many others. One of the guys that I was mentioning in the youth space was Jeremy Frisch. Mm-hmm. The other is Fred Duncan.
He's doing a really good job, and he does a really good job of creating digestible content as well.
Yes, yeah.
His stuff's very shareable.
Yes. So tell me, like, let's say on the flip side of the coin, what are you excited about in either youth sports or just sports in general of all ages? It doesn't have to be youth sports, but if you want to touch on youth, feel free.
I think a lot of the time, right, the pendulum shifts too far one way, and then it tries to like kind of recorrect the other way, and then like it went from like no youth like travel sports and like all travel sports and all years, and I think like hopefully we kind of end up in this middle ground, and I'm excited that our generation of humans is kind of going to come into like this. Our kids are getting to that age where we can then say no, and we can say this is what our schedule is going to be, and my kid's not going to be doing that, and we're not going to be doing this, and that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited for the ability to use some technology and show the kids some technology of like what happens if they don't train in season. So I have a young coach who's really good with some of the data stuff. So I'm excited to be able to leverage somebody to then back up my claims that show that, hey, our athletes who train in season and all year do better than those who don't. And if you take time off, then here's the drop that you see. I'm from a personal side and a gym side. That's what I'm excited for. I'm also excited that my kids are kind of getting into the age, right? So it's like my oldest just finished first grade. My youngest is going into kindergarten next year. So I'll have a second and a kindergartner. So I'm right in the thick of it, right? I'm on boy life. So I think our lives are maybe a little bit different in that regard, but I'm excited for my kids to be in that age where now I'm coaching, right? So I'm managing my kids' little league team so that I can control the schedule and I can control what happens in the practices, and I can hopefully make kind of like an impact from the inside out. And then that's where a lot of my excitement comes from, is like I'm really forging a good foundation of well-intentioned information business in my town, right? So it's like I feel like I've done a good job of getting people to, hey, like I'm not a jerk, I'm not a scumbag, right? Like I'm here for the long haul, for the right development of the kids, and I want to see my community be healthy and be full of athletes who do it the right way and full of parents who understand it, and we can kind of be this beacon of like, wow, there's some really good athletes coming out of the Seacoast and for this long time, and hopefully make that change from the inside out, right? So I'm excited about that. I think that hopefully the information that is coming out about all year and about that, it starts to hit home with the parents who are the deciders, and parents start saying no and start being more selective. I'm excited for flag football, the rise in flag football. I think that team sport is a great metaphor for life, right? It's great, kind of encapsulates life really, really well. But I think football is the best for that, because I grew up playing football, and it's like you get hit every play. You either get up and you keep playing or you don't. And that's life. So I think that sport, and so I'm hopeful that we can find something in flag football that kind of blends and allows people's brains to still be intact if they do play contact football. and go all the way through there. But I'm excited for a lot of stuff, man. I'm excited for my kids to get older and start to compete and have fun and kind of, as you know, it's like as your kids get older, it's the first time that you've done something, right? So it's like one of the only times as an adult that you can experience something new, right? Is by being, in my mind, being a father of somebody who's experiencing something for the first time. Because the first time I do something with my oldest is the first time I've ever done it. And that's kind of a new thing, right? I'm excited to continue. I'm in, I don't know if you know Andy McCloy, but I'm in Andy McCloy's mentorship group, the tribe, and it's just been really good. And I think that business mentorship groups, like I was in the strength faction for a long time. It's actually how I met Andy. And I think that those business mentorship groups, or whatever you want, professional development groups, do a really good job of almost creating that team sport again. Right. And I think that it's really important if you're a one dude in a shop or a personal trainer at a gym and you're trying to build something, it can feel really lonely if you're the only one doing it the way you're doing it, even if you know the way that you're doing it is the right way. And I think that having other people who aren't necessarily in your bubble, like geographically, can help a lot. So I think that I'm excited to continue to grow with all that. I try to have a good outlook. Life's hard enough as it is. So it's like, if you're looking for the doom, you're going to find it, right? Like if you're looking for the bad stuff, you're going to find it. And if you're looking for the good stuff, you're going to find that. So just try to take every day with excitement that I'm upright and try to continue to build Maxway and tell a good story about who Davis and Jake were and explain kind of like how weight training and sports and being a kid is the best time in someone's life. And as parents, we should get out of the way and let them be kids and let the kids play and let them have fun and not try to ruin it too fast. It's things that I talk about every day. So it's been nice. I thank you for the opportunity to kind of talk and get on my soapbox, and I can do this for a long time. I can do this for a long time. So hopefully you got a couple sound bites and you got some good information. But I'm just excited to continue to build, and kind of the gym industry is small once you're in it for long enough. And I think that it's cool to see your friends do good things. And I think like a lot of the people in that nucleus of that CFSC are starting to branch out and really kind of make a really big impact in the fitness world. And I think it's awesome. So I'm excited about that wave.
Yeah. I have found that the bridge from this rant here of like what we don't like to, let's say, so what my current coach would call like the rave, so what we're excited about
Mhm.
is this resolution. And I I feel so strongly that education is like at the pinnacle of that, because people don't know what they don't know, honestly. I mean, I think that they're looking at these young kids, then they're looking at professional athletes, and they're kind of trying to formulate in their head, how does this kid become that guy?
Yeah.
You
What are the
know,
steps? Like, how did that happen?
and I can, in some aspects, I can appreciate that, but I think people from a reality standpoint, they need to understand the reality of statistics.
Yeah.
They need to understand that statistically, you know, why you're playing sports is not because you're going to sign a D1 scholarship or a pro contract.
That
It,
shouldn't
it
be the outcome goal.
Right. The team sport impact, what you're talking about, the impact that you get from the coaches, the impact that it will have on depression, anxiety, the ultimate equalizer of the work ethic that you're talking about, the fact that it's this constant and true religion, if you will, building culture, community. I mean, like, everything that you touched on is really what you know it should be about. And
Yeah, and I think that got lost somehow, and
yeah,
trying to get it back to like, hey, this was the whole point.
yep, yeah. Well, look, man, I think, first of all, I when you were explaining Maxway and you hit a couple points in there, like I legitimately got chills. I think why you named it what you named it, from the logo to, I mean, the connection to bring all three of you back together and pass that on to future generations. Uh, it's very, very, very inspiring, and I am grateful for your time today, man.
Well,
And
thank you for the invite. I would do this all the time. So thank you.
you bet. And we'll keep in contact, and we'll do it again. And look, we need more of what you're doing out there. So keep doing it.
Well, keep
And
on the good fight. You do it too.
yeah. So then, until next time.
Until next time, we'll see you then, man.
Okay.
Bye.